Hi, I'm Dina. Did you know that there's a whole science behind color? It has to do with the way our eyes and brains perceive color, how light affects color, and our psychological reaction to colors. The human eye can distinguish about 10 million different colors. In this video, we'll cover some basic color theory that pertains to art. It will also help you learn how to mix paint colors, choose pleasing and eye-catching color schemes, create a focal point, and inject emotion and atmosphere into your work. I'll also show you examples of how artists use these concepts in their own work. First, I've got a really cool exercise for you. It will show you how easily our brains fool us into seeing colors that are different from what's actually there. Once we understand why our brains get so confused, we'll have a better appreciation for how color interacts with each other and why that's important. Take a look at this gray bar. Which end is lighter, A at the top or B at the bottom? I'm going with A. What about you? When we fade out the background, we can see that the bar is actually all the same color. Okay, check out this checkerboard. Which square is darker, A or B? You might be remembering the gray bar and thinking that this is a trick question, but it's obvious that A is darker than B, right? Let's fade away the background and, whoa, they are exactly the same color. Crazy, right? Now let's try a colored example. Do you see the brown square at the top of the Rubik's Cube right in the middle? Can you find another square that's exactly the same color brown? Well, here's the answer. That orange square on the shadowed side of the cube is actually the same shade of brown. Here's one last one. We've got two different colored cats, a blue cat and a yellowish colored cat. But wait, are they two different colors? If we fade away the background again, we find that the two cats are exactly the same color. How is that possible? To understand why colors can be so complex and why our eyes play these kind of tricks on us, let's go back to our basic color wheel. Our color wheel has 12 colors. It shows us the relationship between colors and is the basis for color mixing and choosing color combinations. To build a color wheel, we start with 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. These primary colors are the building blocks for mixing all the other colors. When we mix 2 primary colors together, we get a secondary color. Red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue makes green, and blue and red makes purple. When we mix a primary color with a secondary color, we get tertiary colors. For example, red and purple make magenta. Red and orange makes red-orange. Yellow and green makes yellow-green. Now that you know how the color wheel is arranged, let's talk about how artists use the color wheel to create color combinations. Artists often use color intuitively. You don't have to memorize all the terms or plan a painting based on specific rules, but these concepts will help you understand how colors are used to create a mood or make an impact. The first color combinations are complementary colors. These are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. This is a dynamic and energetic combination that creates a high impact pop of color. Here are a couple examples of famous paintings with a complementary color scheme. See how Van Gogh's red poppies really pop against a background of green grass? In this painting, John Singer Sargent uses a more subdued palette of warm orange tones that contrast surprisingly with the vivid blue of the water. Here's one of my illustrations that also uses a complementary orange and blue color palette. The next color combinations are called analogous colors, also known as harmonious colors. These are usually groups of 2 to 4 colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. They create a rich, pleasant look and are harmonious and easy on the eye. Here are some famous painters who made good use of analogous colors. Claude Monet uses greens and blues for this peaceful painting of water lilies and a Japanese bridge. Here's a painting by Sargent that uses reds and oranges to create a warm and cozy dinner scene. Here's one of my paintings. The orangey reds and purples, which are neighbors on the color wheel, help contribute to the soothing, sleepy feel. Now we'll briefly review a few other types of color combinations. This is a split complementary color scheme. We have red-orange on one side of the color wheel, and the complementary color on the other side is split into two. This gives Monet's painting a slightly more harmonious feel than using a standard complementary palette. The triadic or triangular color palette is more colorful and energetic. This is one of my illustrations using mostly reds, yellows, and blues, which gives the painting a lively, festive feel. When we use even more colors, like Matisse did in this painting of his wife, you get a painting that is bold, vibrant, and fun, but sometimes overwhelming. This painting uses a tetradic or rectangular color scheme. When he showed this painting in 1905, critics called it shocking, strange, and disturbing. What do you think of it? The last color palette is called monochromatic. This is when variations of just one color are used. I used all blues in this illustration to give it a dreary and lonely feeling. Sargent's painting of Dr. Pazzi, on the other hand, is done in shades of intense reds, giving the portrait a feeling of power and perhaps represents the bloody work of a surgeon. This brings us to our next topic, which is some basic vocabulary describing the qualities of a color. We'll start with hue, which refers to any of the colors on our basic color wheel: red, orange, yellow, green, etc. The hue is the pure color. When we mix a hue with white, we get a tint. When we mix a hue with gray, we get a tone. When we mix a hue with black, we get a shade. The next useful color term is value. When we talk about a color's value, we want to know how light or dark a color is. You can use value to draw attention to the main subject. Let's look at this painting by Sargent. It's got a lot of colors in it, especially in the piles of water jugs: yellows, greens, pinks, purples. But what stands out in the painting are the three seated figures in blue. That's because the value of the blues is much darker than the values of the colors surrounding them. Saturation refers to how pure a color is. If you mix a color with gray or its complementary color on the opposite side of the color wheel, you will get a color that is less bright, grayer, or desaturated. Very bright saturated colors can be used to highlight an area of interest in a painting and help to tell a story. The eye is drawn to the girl in this illustration because I painted her in a saturated yellow color, which stands out against the less saturated blues and greens all around her. Here's a really cool example of how to use value to draw attention to a subject and saturation to help tell a story. First, we'll look at value. Where is the greatest contrast of dark and light? That would be in the little girl with her dark skin and white dress. Her name is Ruby Bridges. She was among the first Black children to attend an all-white public school in 1960. Rockwell uses color saturation to help tell the story. The brightest, most saturated color in this painting is where? In the red of the smashed tomato dripping down the wall. The yellow armbands of the police marshals also draw our eye, telling us how she needed daily protection on her way to school. The last color quality we'll discuss is temperature. If we divide the color wheel in half, like this, we get warm colors on one side and cool colors on the other side. One interesting thing about color temperature is that you can use warm colors to help objects appear closer to us, and you can use cool colors to help objects recede or appear farther away. This is commonly seen in landscape paintings. You can see how the objects closest to us are painted in warmer browns, greens, and pinks, while the faraway mountains are a cooler blue color. I especially love the clever use of cool colors in this painting with the cows. The contemporary artist, Joe Bolger, uses warm browns on the cows closest to us, but pushes other cows into the distance by using cool blues and purples. Likewise, in the landscape, warm greens, browns, and oranges are used in the foreground, the area closest to us, and the cooler greens and blues are used to paint the distant trees and mountains. We also associate certain feelings and moods with certain colors. It's not always the case, but in general, warm colors evoke feelings of warmth, comfort, coziness, happiness, energy, passion, and power. Cool colors can make us feel coldness or serenity, peace, mystery, sadness, melancholy, or gloom. Here are our two flower paintings by Van Gogh. Do you feel how each one has a different energy? The irises in blues and greens feel peaceful, elegant, languid. The yellow sunflowers seem full of movement and energy. Here we have two portraits. One gives us an instant feeling of warmth and cheerfulness, and the other gives us a feeling of coldness and mystery. Here's a lion that I painted. How would you describe him? Maybe bold, powerful, strong, confident. What if I had painted the same lion in cool colors like this? Does he still seem powerful and confident? To me, it feels like some of his energy has drained away, leaving him weaker and lonelier. Now that we've explored things like color temperature, value, and saturation, perhaps you'd like to go back to the optical illusions we started off with and see if we can explain why they appear the way they do. The bar only appears to change color. It looks lighter at the top because it's surrounded by a dark color, and it looks darker at the bottom because it's surrounded by a light color. Our minds tell us that square B is white because it's surrounded by darker squares. But because it is in the shadowed area, it is actually so dark that it is now the same color as square A. The middle square on top of the Rubik's Cube is surrounded by saturated colors, so it looks brown. But when you surround that brown square with colors that are very dark and desaturated, it appears orange. This cat's head isn't really yellow or blue. It's more of an olive green. But the olive green looks more blue on a yellow background, and it looks more yellow on a blue background. We can learn an important principle from this. No color exists in isolation. Colors can be understood only in relation to each other. Knowing things like this will help you to see colors more accurately and mix your paints to match them. I hope you enjoyed this basic overview of color theory for artists. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe.